You already know orcas are apex predators. No natural enemies, top of every food chain they enter. That part is completely accurate. What is wrong is the assumption that their dominance comes from size, speed, or physical power. The thing that actually sets orcas apart from every other predator on Earth is not a physical trait at all. Two orca pods can share the same stretch of ocean, eat different prey, use completely different methods to catch it, and produce vocalizations the other group would not recognize, not because of genetics, but because of what was passed down to them. That is not instinct. That is culture. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The knowledge those matriarchs carry is not generic. It is specific to the group, encoded in something more portable than behavior alone. It is also in the voice. Each pod produces a distinct set of vocalizations, a repertoire of calls that is learned, not genetically encoded. Pods that share some calls are grouped into clans. Pods with completely different repertoires belong to separate communities and rarely interact even when they occupy the same geographic range. Calves are not born knowing these calls. They acquire them through exposure and practice over months and years, the way a child gradually corrects their speech toward the adult form of their language. Early vocalizations contain errors that drift toward the pod's dialect over time. Dialects also shift across generations. Recordings of the same lineage made decades apart are measurably different, producing something like an acoustic fossil record. And here is one of those things that is still genuinely unclear. Researchers do not fully understand the mechanism by which call drift propagates or why certain changes stabilize within a group while others disappear. What is clear is that resident and transient orcas sharing the same coastline are so acoustically distinct that their call structures do not overlap at all. They also do not interbreed. They behave as though the other group is simply not there. Two groups in the same water, acoustically invisible to each other. What they are hunting is equally different, and how they hunt it is where the cultural specificity becomes impossible to dismiss. Hunting strategies in orcas are not species-wide behaviors. They are local traditions, and some are so technically demanding that they require years of practice and cannot be improvised. They have to be learned from within the group. Norwegian orcas use a technique called carousel feeding. Multiple individuals coordinate to herd herring into a compressed ball near the surface, then stun the fish by slapping the school with their tails before eating. No single orca can do this. It requires precise group timing, and no individual arrives knowing how to perform their role in it. On the other side of the world, Patagonian orcas at Punta Norte deliberately beach themselves to grab sea lion pups from the shoreline. The animal has to trust it can return to the water, read the timing of wave sets, and launch itself onto a surface that offers no hydrodynamic support, all at speed. Juveniles practice in shallow water simulations before attempting it. In Antarctica, Type B orcas generate targeted waves to wash seals off ice floes. Multiple individuals swim in synchronized formation, positioning themselves relative to the seal's location, the geometry of the ice, and each other's movements to produce a wave that strikes a specific point. None of these techniques appear across all orca populations. A Norwegian orca would not arrive in Patagonia knowing how to beach hunt. The method does not live in the genome, it lives in the group. That transmission does not happen passively. At Punta Norte, mothers have been observed pushing calves toward the beach during practice sessions, at personal risk of stranding themselves, in what researchers have described as deliberate scaffolding of the learning process. Whether that constitutes teaching in a strict cognitive sense is still debated. It is one of those honest uncertainties worth naming. But the functional result is the same. Adults modify their behavior in the presence of naive juveniles in ways that appear designed to move the juvenile toward competency rather than simply perform the task. Full proficiency in beach hunting is not reached until late adolescence. Years of attempts, failures, and partial successes. That is an extended developmental window for a motor skill, not a fixed action pattern that switches on at maturity. Cultural transmission in orcas runs vertically, from parent to offspring, and horizontally, between peers and non-related pod members. That two-axis structure is one of the specific features that distinguishes cultural transmission from merely social learning, and outside of humans, it is rare, documented in a small number of cetacean species and certain primates. If you are finding this as interesting as I am, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this reach people who would want to see it. The coordination required by these techniques points to something beyond role following. In wave washing, each individual must track multiple others simultaneously, adjust in real time, and perform a different sub-role depending on their position in the formation, an unscripted division of labor that shifts as the situation shifts. Orcas hunting sharks have been documented flipping them to induce tonic immobility, a paralytic state triggered by inversion, then removing the liver with a precision that leaves the rest of the carcass largely intact. The liver of a great white shark can constitute up to a quarter of the animal's body weight and is extraordinarily energy-dense. Extracting it specifically, rather than feeding indiscriminately, suggests a functional knowledge of how that particular body fails under particular pressure, not just pattern recognition, but something closer to applied anatomy. Orcas have also been observed biting only the lower jaw of sperm whales to incapacitate, rather than immediately kill, and tossing prey across distances in ways that serve no nutritional purpose, sharing kills, abandoning them, returning to them. The line between hunting and behavior that serves a social or developmental function is genuinely not always clear. Then comes 2020. Along the Iberian coast and in the Strait of Gibraltar, orcas began interacting with sailing vessels, ramming rudders, disabling boats, in some cases sinking them. Over 500 interactions were documented between 2020 and 2024. The behavior is not random, and it is not species-wide. It is concentrated in a small, critically endangered subpopulation of Iberian orcas, roughly 39 individuals. The leading hypothesis among researchers is that it originated with a single female following a traumatic encounter with a vessel and spread through social contact as juveniles observed and joined in. That origin story is still not confirmed. What is confirmed is the pattern, a behavior emerging in one individual, propagating through a specific social network, and persisting across years, serving no obvious survival function, targeting a specific class of object, and spreading the way ideas spread in groups that watch each other and learn. This is where everything that came before shifts into focus. The boat interactions are not an anomaly. They are the clearest recent demonstration of exactly the process this entire video has been describing: acquisition, transmission, modification of behavior across individuals and time, now pointed directly at us. What the viewer has been watching is not a series of impressive animal facts about a powerful predator. It is a species with distinct regional cultures that do not bleed into each other, with dialects that drift across generations, with techniques that require teaching and years of practice, with a social architecture built around the accumulated knowledge of specific individuals. The different ecotypes sharing the same ocean without interacting, without interbreeding, without adopting each other's methods. These are not populations. They are separate cultures, as distinct from one another as human groups that have lived apart for centuries. Somewhere in the North Pacific right now, a calf is learning a call it did not invent, practicing a hunt it was shown, and inheriting a way of being in the world that has been passed down through a lineage older than most human civilizations. It will pass the same things to its offspring. None of it was ever written down. It survived anyway. When culture appears outside of humanity, the line between us and everything else starts to look a lot less like a wall and a lot more like a gradient. Thanks for watching. If this was worth your time, a like helps more than you would think, and the next video is on the screen right now.